One is everyone's invited to come to our backyard, and we sit down and have a cup of coffee and take a look out at the beautiful Emek Ayalon, which we all get a picture in. And then if you know people who are coming, who want somebody to take them around the country, that's what I'll be doing part of the time in Eretz Yisrael. So that's why I got my name up there. All righty, and away we go. So this is going to be the story of Elisha. We've heard of Elisha, the prophet, the Navi. And then afterwards, everybody else, we're going to fill in now with the story. So I just want to give a little bit of a background. Does this work? Wait a second. Give me a second. It does work. So there's a little bit of background, just to get us into things. Jewish people, Am Yisrael, we come out of Mitzrayim, we settle into the country, and we split up the country amongst wait, I'm in your way? We split up the country amongst the tribes. Now, what I liked about this map is, what do you notice? It's in German, I think, but you notice that Shevet Menashe, they put them right next to each other. In other words, let's just get, Mediterranean, right? This is, anybody? The Kinneret, down over here, the Dead Sea. This is going to be the Jordan River, the Jordan River Valley. And these, Reuven and Gad, wanted to stay over on this side of the Jordan. So Moshe said, Shevet Menashe, you go along, part of you will go along with them to keep them in line. Shevet Menashe was a very strong Torah Shevet, so they came over here also. It's very nice. What's missing from this map is actually what's up here. What part of the country is in right there nowadays? The Golan. Back in the Torah times, we called it the Bashan. And we know Dan is Mizanik Meha Bashan. So this is really Shevet Dan. That's missing. Anyway, it's just nice to see that we settle into our country. We're Shvatim. We're not unified 100% under a Melech. Who's going to unify us as being the first Melech? Shaul, right? And then we have David. And then we're going to have Shlomo HaMelech. With Shlomo HaMelech, we max out. We're going to have parts, our border is going to extend into Lebanon, all the way up to the Euphrates. All right, we're going to have good parts of Syria of today. That all belongs to Shlomo HaMelech's empire. It's huge. Things like this, unfortunately, it doesn't last so long. The Achdut, the unity doesn't last all that long. What happens right after Shlomo HaMelech? His son takes over. Who's his son? Rechavam. Does it sound like you might remember this from high school? Rechavam takes over, and he takes over and continues to be the Melech in Yehuda, but Yeravam ben Navat takes all of the 10 tribes and separates out. Now we have two kingdoms, the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. Sometimes we're very much antagonistic, we're enemies, but there are times in our history that these two kingdoms become unified again, or at least they're friendly. So that's where we're going to pick up right now. Also, the players at hand there hasn't changed, right? Just like when we left Mitzrayim, you have Edom down here, Moab over here, and Ammon, same players. Now, who's one of the strong kings of Melech Malchut Yisrael, the kingdom of Israel? Is a very strong king. He's an evil king, but he's very concerned about the strength of Am Yisrael. He's married to a very evil woman. Yes, Isabel, and she's a Phoenician from up over here. And she brings down all the Nevi'ei HaBaal, the prophets of the Baal. And she's married to a guy named Achav. Achav's a very strong king. During Achav's time, king of Moab is paying tribute. He's in servitude. He has to pay tribute to the kingdom of Israel. And then what happens is Achav dies, and that's where we start our story. Okay? At this point, I just want to point out also in Hebrew that Edom, which is down here, Moab, which is over here, there's a natural border between these two countries or two states, tribes. It's called Nahal Zered. We're going to go visit it later on. It's right. It's a natural border. You'd call it the Vadi. It's like in between the mountains. It's like a gap between the mountains. So how we start our story. All right. And it was that when Achav died, the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. And now King Yehoram, who's the son of Achav, Yehoram is also following in his father's footsteps. He's not a good guy, but Yehoram comes out of Samaria on that day, and he wants to set up counted all of Israel. He's setting up his army, and he went and called Yehoshaphat, king of Judah. Yehoshaphat's a righteous king. He's a righteous king. And he says, the king of Moab has rebelled against me. Will you go with me to war against Moab? Look at Yehoshaphat. What does he say back? I'll go up. I'll be like you. My people like you, like your people. My horses like your horses. It's a very nice time in the fact that Malchut Yehuda and Malchut Yisrael are in it together. So that's a good thing. And he said, by which road shall we go up? And he said, by the way of the desert of Edom. Okay, the way of the desert of Edom, meaning that Melech Yisrael and Melech Yehuda, they're going to come down, they're going to pick up Melech Edom, and they're going to attack Moab from over here, from the south, right? Why do they want to go in this direction? Anybody have a suggestion? How would you, if you were these two kings, how would you have attacked Moab? You come out of Yerushalayim, you come down here, this is Yericho, and you just cross over the Jordan River, and you just attack from here. But for some reason, they decide that they're going to go down, and they're going to go through the desert of Edom. Here, if you come out of Yerushalayim, you'll travel along the Dead Sea, you hit Ein Gedi, you hit Masada. When you're driving on that road, what do you notice around you? What's growing around you? Not much. Yeah, you got date palms, right? Other than that, it's just desert. So why do you think these people, these kings, are going to come through the desert like that? Any suggestions? It's not written in the Tanach, so you could say anything; it'll probably be right. Surprise. That makes sense, right? They're going to make a surprise. That's probably correct. They're going to come around like this, pick up the king of Edom, and they're going to surprise Moab from the south. That's how the story begins. And what happens, though? Something goes wrong. And it was that when Achav died, we just did this. By which way shall we go? And the king of Israel, and the king of Judah, the king of Edom, we got three kings. They went around a journey of 7 days through the desert, and there was no water for the camp or for the animals that were with them. Something went wrong. I don't know. It doesn't say the supply lines. Something went wrong in their calculations. They don't have enough water. So the king of Israel, who's not righteous, says, alas, for the Lord has called these three kings to deliver them into the hands of Moab. Everything's lost. Now, in these times, if you're a righteous king, what's going to be your immediate reaction? Yeah, you don't have Eliyahu anymore, but you do have Elisha the Navi. Let's talk to the prophet, right? Daven, go to the prophet. Let's see what he says. I have this in Hebrew, but it says, Yehoshaphat says, Ein po navi la Hashem? Don't we have a prophet? And they go to talk to Elisha. And then Elisha looks at the king of Israel and says, I want to go talk to the Baal, go talk to the prophets of the Baal that you brought down from Phoenicia. What do you want from me? But then he turns afterwards to Yehoshaphat, who's a righteous king. He says, because of you, I'll tell you what's going to happen. And here's the prophecy. All right? It's kind of small. And he said, so as the Lord said, this valley shall be made full of pools. In the valley, has anybody ever been to Israel and down in the desert? What's a gev? Anybody remember what a gev is? Okay, that's a gev. Look familiar? All right. You got in the middle of the desert, they got these water holes. It's left over from the rains of the winter. It's a lot of fun when you enter into the summer. Right? It's a lot of fun. You're out in the hot and the heat of the desert. You jump into the pool. It's great. As it comes towards the end of the summer, these guys start turning green. Not so much fun, but people do it anyway. They travel through. It's fantastic. And that's what you do if you're traveling around the Negev. All these are called gevim, meaning there's no water source to it. It's leftover rainwater from the winter time. And you can just go, that's in the middle of the summertime. It's really hot, but you come to these places, you get to go in. So what's he saying, Elisha? He says, everything's dry. There's no water. He says, don't worry. These pools are going to fill up with water. How's it going to fill up with water? So the prophecy continues. For so has the Lord said, you shall not see wind, neither shall you see rain, yet the valley will be filled with water, and you and your cattle and your beasts shall drink. And this will be slight in the eyes of the Lord. What does that mean? You not see wind, you not see rain, yet the valley will be filled with water. How's that going to happen? What do you think happens? You go to sleep, right? And what? They wake up the next morning and boom, there's water there, right? It's a miracle. That's why you got a prophet here for. So actually, the way I learned this as a kid also was Mitzudat David. You shall not see wind, saying the water will not arrive in a natural way by the wind and rain. Rather, it will arrive by miracle. So all of a sudden, it just filled up with water and everything was happy. So what therefore happens in the story? The next part of the story is that, and they arose early in the morning, and all the Moabites heard that the kings had come up to wage war with them. They find out. They assembled everyone old enough to gird a sword and older, and they stood at the border. They don't. Maybe it was a surprise, right? Maybe they didn't have an army, a standing army. They had to get everybody they could, gather them together. And they arose early in the morning when the sun shone on the water, and the Moabites saw the water from a distance, red as blood. Why was it red as blood? It's early morning, the sun is shining. Why is it red as blood? Rashi. Such is the nature of water when the sun shines on it in the morning and appears red at a distance. Now, since they had never seen water in that valley, it's supposed to be dry right now, they therefore thought that it was blood. Something to do with the reflection of the sun. So far, things are developing nicely. We got an idea. And then look what happens next. And they said, this is blood. The kings have fought. They had 3 kings, right? So the kings must have fought with each other, killed each other. And now to the spoils, Moab. So you can imagine this. If this was a Hollywood movie, what happens? They all throw their swords down and take off the armor. And they start running to get the booty. And they come on in. And the Israelite army is eating cornflakes, right? With their swords next to them. They go, uh-oh. And yeah, that would be the movies. That's really what happens. They come running in. And then what's going on? And they came to the Israelite camp. The Israelites arose and struck the Moabites. And they fled from before them. And they attacked them. And they slew the Moabites. So that's the end of the story for here. So this is like, makes sense. It was a miracle. All of a sudden the water came by. They were saved and they attacked. Now, the thing is, though, that because of the fact that Baruch Hashem, actually tonight's Yom Yerushalayim. Tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow they're going to be doing the dancing because it's Erev Shabbos on Friday. But tomorrow night will be Yom Yerushalayim, yeah. So Baruch Hashem, we have our land back, and lot, we see the miracles as they unfold. And because we know our country, so we have more knowledge of archaeology and also more knowledge of how the country runs. And that enables us to take a look at these kind of stories in the Tanach and maybe have another understanding to it. So here, let's take a look at a possible other way of understanding what actually took place over there. So in order for us to understand, we're going to travel around the country. Anybody? Where are we? Oh, this you got to get this one. No passes on this. Huh? Masada. Who said Masada? I should have brought candies. It's Masada. Masada is the perfect fortress. Why is it the perfect fortress? What do you see about this mountain? It's very steep. There's really no way up. It's hard to get up on top. There's a lot of things about this mountain. Who makes this into a fortress for them at first? The Chashmonaim, Hasmoneans, the Chashmonaim, the guys who brought you Hanukkah. They're the ones who make this into a fortress. You need a fortress. Why? In case there's a coup. Most of the kings back in those days did not die on their deathbed from old age, right? They were always like a coup. So if you got away, you'd come with your garrison of loyal men, which means you paid them more gold, and you get on top of this mountain, then you're safe. And where are we? We're right next to the Dead Sea. In this area, it's desert. This is Masada. What also, not only is it very steep and it's hard for the enemy to catch you when you're on top, but take a look. What do you notice about this mountain? It's so clear and makes it a great fortress. You see everything, and it is not connected to any other mountain. All right? That's unusual. All right? We're just going around over here. It's not. This thing over here is a later addition from the Roman period. Imagine that this is not here. So it's a straight cliffs all around, not connected to any other mountain. And what happens if you get, the only way up is what's this is called? Anybody remember? The snake path, because it looks like a snake. It snakes around. Here you see that the cliffs, here's cliffs, but here it's kind of not that many cliffs. You could get actually to the top, and it's kind of flat in this area, so you can run the snaky path up on top. It's the only way to get on the top of the mountain. Meaning, if you get on top of this mountain with what, 20, 30 men, that's all you need. You protect yourself. How do you protect yourself? What's the way you can protect yourself? If you're on the top of the mountain, there's thousands of soldiers down below. How do you protect yourself if you're on top first? What's the easiest way? Throw stuff at them. If you're good at bowling, all right, no problem. I got plenty of rocks on top. Just chuck it down. And yeah, last time I did this on the way up was a couple of years ago. I was with young 18-year-old boys from the yeshiva of Shalabim. So I think, I'm going up with them, and according to law, the guide's supposed to be in the front. I think I got up to right about over here or so. And then finally I had to say, okay, guys, go ahead, go in front of me. I could take it. I said, of course, it's because of COVID. I wasn't in shape, not because of my age. But I told them, go run ahead. It's hard, but this is the one way up. There's another way that's easier, that's from the Roman ramp. But anyway, that's the only thing. And if you're up on top, here's the Roman, his leftovers from the Roman camps that are around the side. but you just chuck on them something. Now, also, if you're on top, what do you notice? This is amazing about the top of this mountain. It's so weird. It's flat. If it's flat, what does it give me? What am I going to gain? What's my advantage? I'm going to be up on top. Let's say I'm under siege. I'm planning to be under siege for years. So I have in my storage houses, but what if you have a flat mountaintop? What can you do up on top here? Sustainable. You could collect water and you could grow your own crops. The thing's flat. It's a great mountain. And the thing is, where do you get the water from? I'm in the desert. So it rains a little bit, not much, but it does rain a little bit. Where am I going to get the water? As you said. So I set up gutter systems throughout the entire top of the mountain, and see the hole in the ground? So if the few times that it does rain, I gather all the water, I run it into here, and I find myself inside this cistern. You can still see the plaster on the wall. This is going to be enough for me to drink, enough for me to do a little bit of gardening. And this is a great mountain. This is how it is all the time that the Hasmoneans are in power. That's about 160s BCE. We're going to jump ahead now 120, 30 years, all right? We're going to now land ourselves in the time of Herod. It's not the Greeks, but it's now the Romans. And if it's the Romans, Herod's he's very friendly, let's say, with the Romans. He's a very powerful ruler, but he is a vassal state to Rome. But we're talking about the 37, from the years 37 to 4 is when Herod rules. And Herod changes this, not only into a fortress. What do we know Herod, by the way, from? Where else have you seen Herodian construction? Jerusalem, the rebuilding of the temple. Marat Machpelah in Hebron. Caesarea, Herodian. There's a number of places throughout Israel. He's really building. He's known as, in English, it's called Herod the Great. You ever hear that's Herod the Great? What's he great about? So you think he's a great engineer, great builder. We know him from the Gemara. He's Herod the Great murderer. He also happens to be a murderer. But that's like a different time. That's for a different tour. But let's take a look. Herod comes up here. Look at what he does. So this is crazy because we're talking 2,000 years ago. He starts chopping the mountain. Look at this. He chops the mountain off like that. And again, over here, this is the northern cliff. Chops the cliff off and he makes it flat so he could build on it. That, don't have jackhammers. How are they doing this now on the side of a cliff with chisels? Crazy stuff. That's Herod. He builds this. Let's take a look from the front. Okay, here it is. 1 level, 2 levels, and the top level. What's Herod? Now, the thing is that's good about these places, Masada, or we have in this era, Masada, a lot is left over from 2,000 years ago. How come? Like the bottom, the basic floor plan is found. It's still there, right? Why? Because this is so far removed. Nobody's carting away the stones over here for secondary use. All over the country, if you want to build your house, so you got that ruins of some Jewish synagogue over there, let's take the stones and we build our house. But nobody's down this area, so it just stays there. What's happened to the buildings over the course of 2,000 years? Where are they? There's Syrian-African rift, there's earthquakes. So what happens? The building's shaking in the earthquake, so what's going to happen? It shakes, and then the top of the building just topples over. So the archaeologists come up here and they find good portion of the buildings that just on the side. All they have to do is grab the rocks and put them back up. And that's why they're able to rebuild a lot of stuff up here. But if you take a look at this, use your imagination. If you got a creative imagination over here, and we got the structure of the building and we got like the bottom of the walls. And if you're an artist, you could just build them up. And this is a pretty good place to live 2,000 years ago. This is not just a fortress. Herod is running a 5. And who's coming down for the winter to the Dead Sea, to bathe in the sulfur, like we fly to Miami. So he's got all of his friends from Rome, from Italy, that in the wintertime are coming down to spend some time in Herod's hotel. How do we know it's a hotel? Because if you go back on the top of the mountain, you have all of these things. This stuff you could see, wherever there's like a black line, that means that they rebuilt the wall. In other words, they found these rocks on the floor and they just had to put them back up. So these are all storage houses. He has tons of storage houses. Here's an example, right? This is what you find. The earthquakes, the thing toppled over. Here's all the stones, and they just rebuild them. We found in storage houses, we found the leftover jugs, amphorae. They have in it, from the chemical analysis, they have the oldest in caviar and great Roman wine and all kinds. He's running a great hotel over here. Not only does he have good food, but anybody want to take a shot at what this thing is left over from It's a pool. Yeah, Sarah's right. It's a pool. Just put plaster on these things. You got yourself a good old-fashioned pool. A pool? You're kidding me, in the middle of a desert? I don't get it. This thing is very cool. Anybody? Wait, I have the slide in. I think I got a better slide. Hold on. There we go. Oh, so what is this exactly? This whole business? We'll use this slide. This is a good old-fashioned Roman bathhouse. Actually, this is a bathhouse, Roman bathhouse. You have a courtyard over here. So you work up a sweat. How do you work up a sweat? We play basketball. How do these guys work up a sweat? They wrestled it out. Okay. Now, a lot of times they wrestled, as we know, the Olympics, the wrestling was all done unclothed. And this is going to bring us back to starting with the Greeks, back to the Hanukkah, the Jews versus the Greeks, as far as total different cultures. But you could wrestle it out. And then after wrestling it out, here you got the dressing room, you keep your clothing. This is a frigidarium, right? It's a colder pool, a warmer pool. And over here is going to be the caldarium, the hot room, meaning this is going to be a nice sauna. How's it going to work? It's very, very cool. What do they do? See all these little posts on the floor? So the posts on the floor, you can see them all around. So the flooring is on top of these posts, all right? Over here, you have like an entrance. That outside is where the fire is burning. And with billows, you're pumping hot air into the room underneath the floor, because this whole thing is like one floor right on top of these posts. So everything's getting hot. You have a couple of tubs of water that's submerged into the floor. They're heating up, starting to emit steam. You got yourself a great sauna. This is very nice. This is a 5-star hotel. Most places don't have this. The Gemara, one of the Tanaim in the Gemara, Amoraim in the Gemara mentions that he used to go to one in his town. What's the danger of this thing, obviously? Yeah, if it breaks, then, we got to roast, and it's not the duck. That's so there's a guy at Amora in the Gemara that said that when he used to come out of the bathhouse, he used to say a bracha of Hagomel, because he made it out alive. It wasn't, the Herod's worked fine. And what's very nice about it also is that, so this is very interesting. Look at most of the time, the roofs are flat. Anybody want to suggest why? Most of the time that the rooms are much smaller than this and they got flat roofs. Anybody take a shot? Why? What's going to hold up our roof? We do that today, but today we use steel. You need something to go across the top to make your roof, right? You have to get a beam. Where are you going to get a beam? So if you're Shlomo HaMelech, you get the cedars of Lebanon. You got a nice big beam, a nice wide room. But most people just took whatever was available, smaller trees, smaller beams. Herod doesn't do that. What does Herod do over here? He's got problems flat. Look at this. The whole thing curves. And this is expensive. Why? To make an arch out of stone, right? It gets very expensive. Why? What do you have to do? If you think back last time you were in Israel, you got to take the stones and you got to cut them trapezoidal and then sort of put a scaffolding and sandwich them into each other in an arch, and then remove the scaffolding and the pressure or the gravity of the stones coming down. But because they're shaped like this, they crunch together, they keep themselves up. It's expensive to do this. Why is he doing this? Because what happens, you're sitting, anybody ever been if you're in the sauna, right? You're up against the wall here and you're just like chilling out. What's the worst thing when you're in a nice hot sauna and you're chilling out? The door opens. That's one. 2 on the list. The guy who doesn't stop talking next to you. That's the worst. And or the fellow who's thinking that he's in the exercise room, right? And they're just moving around, just quiet. What happens though is if it's flat on top, so the steam's going up to the ceiling. What happens when the steam hits the ceiling? Condenses, starts to drip. The worst is when you're just chilled out like that and it starts dripping on your head. That's really bad. What happens when this is what the ceiling looks like? All right. Where does the vapor go? It starts climbing. Where does it condense? Keeps going up. It's going to get to the very top, but that's in the middle. So the condensation takes place right here in the middle of the room, and the dripping is coming down in the center where nobody's sitting. Brilliant. That's a nice hotel to go to. They thought of everything. So obviously, what's the questions you have on Herod? All right, what's going to be our questions on Herod? How do you have a pool? Where do you get the water for that? Even if you went down to the Dead Sea, which is far away, It's salt water. How does he run a freshwater pool? It's crazy, all right? And he has a bathhouse and a 5-star hotel. That's unbelievable. Where did he get the water from? So that's the biggest question. That's the mystery. Put that on the side. I'll explain to you how water works in Israel, and we'll go explain what happens in Masada, and then we'll head back towards what happened with the kings in their battle. All right, anybody know where we are now? I'll give you another hint. They run chasanas in this place. And we are actually looking out over, you see, this is dry, right? This is the Jordan River Valley. This is Yericho. So we're in a little town called Mitzper Yericho, Lotzpot, to look out into Yericho. I have a nephew just got married, and they do have chasanas. It's beautiful. So if you're up in Yericho, this is where you are. What's really interesting, how far is this? Jordan River. This is where Am Yisrael camps before the crossover. And again, it's amazing because this is 10 minutes, 15 minutes outside Yerushalayim. Anybody ever been caught in the rain in Yerushalayim? It rains ganz fine. That's Yiddish, sorry. It rains very, very well in Yerushalayim. A lot of water comes down Yerushalayim. You go out of Yerushalayim towards the Dead Sea, in that direction, towards the east. Within 5 minutes, it's already dry. This is already 15 minutes, it's very dry, but within 5 minutes, it's already dried out. What happened? Where did all the rain go? So this is what happens in Yerushalayim. It's very cool. This is how Eretz Yisrael is set up. This is how Kadosh Baruch Hu made it. We have in the middle of the country, all right? In the middle of the country, there's these is a spine of mountains right smack in the middle of the country. Let me do this one. All right, smack in the middle of the country. Yeah. Here we got the Judean hills, Harei Yehuda, Harei Binyamin, Ephraim, Menashe. It's all in the middle. Where's the water coming from? Where's the rain coming in from? Mediterranean. The rain's coming out here. It forms out in the sea, comes in, comes across the coastal plain. And then as it starts hitting, the lowlands, and then goes to the mountains, it starts rising. When rain rises, what happens? It gets colder. And when vapor gets colder, then what happens? It condenses. And after a while, after condensing, what happens? Starts to rain. So all the rain is coming down on these mountains. The way Hashem built it is by the time you get right over the mountain, it's basically no more rain left. Very little bit amount of rain comes through. If you're on the top of these mountains is where the highway is. One, it's also where the rain, that's going to be the watershed. I don't know when the last time people were in Eretz Yisrael. If I tell you, think about standing at the top on Rehov King George, looking down at Ben Yehuda Street. Does that resonate by anybody? A little bit, some people. So if I'm looking at Ben Yehuda, what am I watching? I see the road heads downwards, right? It's heading towards the east. If you stand in the same spot, don't move, and you just turn the opposite direction, what are you going to see? You see Rehov Agrippus, where the Shuk is, Machane Yehuda. All right, and what's that? That's going downhill also, but towards the west. King George Street is actually the watershed. Any water that's why the highway is over there, because King George is just, tarred over ancient highway from the time of the beginning of history. So if it rains on King George, anything on King George and towards the west is going to run down here towards the Mediterranean. Anything that's on King George Street and down towards the east is going to run down in this direction, towards the Jordan Valley, towards the Dead Sea. Meaning if it rains up here, by the time the clouds get over the mountains, right over here even, there's not that much rain. However, the water is going to start to pile up and start to run. Meaning, if it's going to rain up here, let's say near Yerushalayim, about 2 hours later, the water has collected across this whole mountain range. It comes surging out of the mountains and gets into the Dead Sea. Makes sense? There's people who like to do, then it rains, they call each other, okay, I'll meet you there. They travel out and they, down along this area to watch the rain come out of the, it could be dangerous, unfortunately. That's a flash flood. So for example, I had a friend of mine was on a bus when it rained in Jerusalem. She took this video. Look at that. That's the hill. That's Exegetic, but that's the hills, and it's heading straight down towards the Dead Sea, right? So if you're on that highway that day, you're stuck. It's Highway 90. You're stuck. You're stuck in traffic. There's a friend. There you go. That's okay. I'll show you a little bit better. We'll start with this one. And this is the amazing thing because back here are the mountains, and it's now heading towards the east. It starts out a little bit of like when you see the little little trickles on the street going into the sewer. The little trickles, and the next trickle gets to the next one, and it gathers up. This is what you get. You actually see a wall. It's a real wall coming out, wall of water. Okay, don't worry. Nobody gets hurt. Don't worry, don't worry. Now, this guy, on the other hand, don't worry, don't worry. Look at that. When I was in yeshiva, they took us near Vadi Kelt, right outside Yerushalayim. Like in those days, everything, I call Beseder, I call Beseder, right? That's what we used to say, Beseder. We actually, fortunately, we're not on the bottom of the Vadi, but I actually saw it, like an empty Vadi, and within 5 minutes, there's like a raging river coming through, pushing boulders. This is what happens. This is like, same idea. You get the idea. Comes with such force. Yeah. All right. We get the idea. All right. Go to this one. I think this is the tail end of that other one. The Nachal Chever in the Negev. That's amazing. Look at that. That's a lot of water. So that's what's called, that's shitfanot, that's the flash floods. Again, it could be dangerous. You have to be very careful, but it comes out very strong. Once it stops raining in the hills, then 2 hours later, the waterfall is going to stop. Yeah. So that happens a lot because every time it rains, in Yerushalayim, it rains often. So like, from November up until November a little bit, December, January, February, a little bit also in March, but those are the months that it rains. And we pray for a lot of rain. And you can have a lot of rain. There's years that we have rain. So that's it can happen often. There's these people like, it's raining, you're going to run down to see it as it comes out of the mountains. Yeah, same. Sammy's just pointing out, we say in Shir Malos, at the very end, I'll show you that. Okay, that will be a closeout of inspiration. We'll have at the end. So this is the end. This is what happens, okay? So let's go back up to Masada. We're now standing on Masada. We're standing on Masada. A friend of mine, it's not great quality. It's a friend of mine. He had his phone. Okay, Alan Harari. So he's up on the top and he's looking towards the west, right? This is the west. It means it's raining back here. And what is it? The water's going to run out of these hills and go down towards the Dead Sea. Now look what happens when you're standing on top here. Okay, you can see already a little bit over here. Look at this. So it's not always so forceful like the one we saw. It's little streams. All these are little streams that are coming out because it rained back in the mountains. There you go. Not huge, but nice. There's a lot of water over there. Okay, let's move a little bit towards the south. Come on, Alan. He's walking, obviously, now. Okay. All right, we're going to get something. Okay, you get the idea. You can see that the water, these little waterfalls. And I forget what he does. This is at the breach point. In the mountains over here, you can see a couple of holes in the mountains. All right, but that's not what I want to see. All right, so we see the streams of water. Great. You did a good job. I think that's about it. All right, beautiful. Okay. All right, we understand that. Okay, so here's the ball game. We had a question as far as how was it that Herod actually, let's go. How is it that Herod, right, Masada, and we said there's a swimming pool over here and a bathhouse over here, and he has a 5-star hotel over here. So how is it that Herod's getting water, right? He's not going down to the Dead Sea. So if you take a look at this, the great thing about Masada, right, is that it's a standalone mountain. Now, can you imagine, though, if 2,000 years ago, Like over here, there's a crack. And this is talking about 2,000 years ago. You don't have bulldozers, nothing. But you get people to build a dam right over here. This is called Nachal Masada. Yeah. And the water's coming out of the mountains, heading towards the Dead Sea right over here also. So what would happen if you put a dam over here? What's going to happen? The water comes out and starts building up. Where's the water going to go now? Starts rushing this way, right? Now forget about this. This is later. This is 73 CE. This is the Romans, and that's the story of Masada. But the water's going to start running like this and then run down in this direction towards the Dead Sea. Right? Make sense? So if I have the water running against the side of the mountain, all I have to do is cut out on the side of the mountain these little waterways and cut cisterns into the side of the mountain. All right? It looks like this, cisterns in the side of the mountain. And right, the water's running along and it goes into these collection systems, and this leads it right into the cisterns. All I need is one good rain in the hills of Jerusalem. And 2 hours later, from one rain, I got enough water running along the side of my mountain to fill up all those cisterns. Voila. Then I just give myself a donkey path that goes like this, back up on top. And all day long, I have donkeys going up and down, refilling my pool, cleaning it out. Brilliant. And he doesn't have the same tools that we have nowadays, but that's how he figures it out. That's harnessing the flash floods that are going through the country. So we know how this works. If you go down for some other time, go down to Tel Beersheba. I think I'm going to get to that. One of the Tel Beersheba has the same kind of a setup. So this is how it works over here. So let's go back over here. What did we say? We said that the three kings, Melech Yisrael, Melech Yehuda, and Melech Edom, are here right on the southern border of Moab. Okay? They're parked over here. Moab finds out about them, and they're at the natural divide, Nachal Zered. The prophet Elisha says, you will not see rain, you will not see wind, you not feel wind, you not see rain. What happened? Okay, this is the natural border. And that Masada's son, here's Arad, Masada's right over here. They come around like this. This is the natural border. You see the mountains, natural. You know what? Ooh. Oh, okay. This is Nachal Zered. It's a break in the mountains, mountain pass. So here's looking from the top, right? This is Edom, and this over here is Moab. And there's a steep, steep mountain pass between the two, which is the natural border. Now here we go. This, from here on this map, from here to about up here is about 2 hours worth, all right? 2 hours in time. What happens if it's raining over here, right? But it's not raining over here, but it rains over here. Which way is the water going to run? Downhill. Meaning, just like if it rains in Jerusalem, I'm not going to see the rain if I'm sitting down at Masada, but it will be there 2 hours from then. Is it possible that what Elisha's talking about is that it's going to rain in this area and you're not going to feel the wind or see the rain? But 2 hours later, the water's going to come rushing into this valley. What's the miracle at this point? So where's the miracle? Because the miracle's in the timing, right? Elisha says that's what's going to happen, and that's what happens. That's the miracle. So if that's the possibility over here, right? So that's where we are. So let's go visit Nachal Zered, because how come they think it's blood? That's a good question. So let's go look in Nachal Zered. This is Nachal Zered when it's dry. Nachal Zered when it's wet, because when it rains, it does fill up. And you ready? What color does this look? Is it a little bit reddish? It's cool though. How about this? Reddish? Yeah. There's oxidation, right? Iron oxidation on the sides of the body. No. So what happens when the sun comes up early and reflects, and it's giving the light that this water is reflecting off the redness of the cavern? What are you going to see? You'll see blood. So this sounds like a very modern, right? Like a modern kind of shot. So, modern. But if you take a look at Rashi. He's quoting the Medrash Tanchuma. The water began falling from heaven in the morning in the land of Edom. And at the time of the offering of the meal offering, which is just a few hours later, it came surging into that valley, since the prophet had said, you shall not see wind, neither shall you see rain. Wow. The Medrash Tanchuma that Rashi's quoting, what is the Medrash Tanchuma describing? A flash flood. This is not a modernish shot. This is what, the Medrash Tanchuma understood had happened. Not that all of a sudden, poof, everything came up, but Elisha calls for it. And then the next time, this is the story on it. Okay, keeping an eye on the clock. And this is what Sammy referred to. Shir Amalot, B'shuv Hashem et Shivat Zion Ayinu Kechomim. When God brings back the captives of Zion, we'll be like dreamers. What do we say? What does it say again? Let's go back this way. Shuvah Hashem et Shivitenu Ka'afikim Banegev. Right? Return, O Lord, our captivity like rivulets in arid land. What's a rivulet? Afikim. What's an afik in the Negev? This is, I don't know who the boy is. This is a afik. It's a small stream. But as we learned already, a small stream gathers up with another small stream, and it gets a little bit wider. And then it adds to more streams, gets more and more, and then, boom, even more. What are we saying, David HaMelech? Like the Afikim Sheba Negev, that it comes from all different areas, and it becomes a big surge. So too, this is only up till 1991, where we had immigration to Eretz Yisrael from all the, the ingathering of the exiles from all over the world coming into tiny Eretz Yisrael. And then we surge together and we stand at the base of Mikdash or at the Kotel and davening thousands strong. And that's the sign, the rivulets, Kafikim Ba'negev. That's what it's supposed to be like. And I got myself another blurb. I could stop at this point. It's always good that, or you want me to rush through something, or you guys have the patience to sit further? Nobody's going to say no. I'll do something very quickly, okay? Very quickly. Very cool. Anybody know where we are? We're up on a mountain looking at the Kinneret. We're at the Kinneret, okay? This is Har Arbel. That's the famous Har Arbel. People love to hike Har Arbel, including myself, my wife. That's my oldest granddaughter. So we took her as a bat mitzvah present. We went for 3 days up north with her, traveled around the north of the country. That's her climbing down Har Arbel. Don't tell Elisa I put a picture of her in here. She won't let me home, but that's her climbing down Har Arbel. It's a lot of fun. Har Arbel is right up over here, looking over the Sea of Kinneret. Now, if you're up in Arbel, the antiquities, there is an old city. We know about this old city for centuries. And this antiquities, this is what they found many years ago. And they this is what they found many years ago. But this is beams. If you have beams like this, what do you suggest? What kind of a building? Not here, but this is a Beit Knesset, right? This is a synagogue, Beit Knesset. So the interesting thing about it is that in those days, even back then, this is a Talmudic era, this goes back 1700 years. Even back then, they built nice Batei Knesset. Everyone sat around over here, right? Sephardic custom. And they had this women's section, and then you had a roof. This is like 25 feet tall. And they built out of a lot of rock, and they didn't have funds, and they didn't have government help or anything. They didn't have bulldozers. So something like this could take, fill it in. It really looked nice. They had these kind of buildings. Thing is like this, a couple of questions on this building. And here's where architecture teaches us a lesson of life. I heard this from Chagai Amitzor, who's a professor of archaeology in Israel. If you take a look, this is what they found when they originally cleared out the area, but they since then have, again, here's this thing, that's this thing. And they picked up from the earthquakes, they picked up the stuff and rebuilt it. So here's the rebuilt entrance to the Beit Knesset. Only thing is that was interesting is that if you take a look, it might be a little far. Here you got like the etching on the stone. When it gets up here, look at this. It's turning this way. It's going in this direction. Same thing over here. You come up, the etchings on the stone comes up and goes this way. Meaning that there was another door over here. You have an entrance that has 3 doors in it. Okay? Yeah, you can see better. Etching comes up and it's going to go this way. Same thing over here. Why would you build an entrance to your Beit Knesset that has 3 doorways? Have 1 major doorway. Why do you have to have 3 doors in? The other thing that's interesting is that this stone, as massive as it is, how do you usually build a door? You get the posts, the mezuzot, and what do? Then you get a 3rd piece of wood and put it across the top. This is one piece of stone. It's called a monolith. One big stone. Why? Why bother? It costs so much more. It's heavy to schlep. Why did they make sure that's one piece of stone? And why is it that there's 3 doors together? And another question is, the entrance is right over here. Now, what's this supposed to be? We're in a Beit Knesset. What do you see? That's the Aron Kodesh. When you're up in the north, where's your Aron Kodesh? Facing towards the south, towards Yerushalayim. So it's on the south, not like what we do here. So it means if I walk in, so this is the Beit Knesset facing south towards Yerushalayim. So you would think that the main entrance would be on the north, but it's not. It's on the east. Why are you putting your entrance on the east? That's also weird. Like if you go around, anybody? Notice the color of the stones. Dark color, meaning it has volcanic minerals in it. Where does this put us? The Golan Heights. Golan Heights is one big volcanic mountain. So mountain, ridge. Here I got the Aron Kodesh. This is a Umel Kanatir. It's in the middle of the Golan Heights. You go towards the south. The entrances are on the side, on the northern side. Here, anybody? This is also in the north. You can see the dark stone. This is called Katzrin in the Golan. You enter in from the north, and the Aron Kodesh is back over here in the south. So that's the 3 questions we have. Why one stone? Why 3 doors? And why is it on the east? So let's go back to this over here. I don't know why we came back to this over here. This is what I want to show you. If I'm on Har Arbel, this is the mountain that we were on, Har Arbel. If I look across, this is called the mountain of Har Nitai. Very cute. Even the forest services have a sense of humor. Why? Why is this called Har Nitai? Nitai Arbeli, because in the Mishnayos and Pirkei Avot, there's a guy named Nitai Arbeli who came from Arbel. So they call this mountain Har Nitai. Cute, right? In between, we have a mountain pass. What do we know about mountain passes? Well, sometimes it has water going through. What else would you have going through a mountain pass? We'll talk about this more maybe in the next one. What do you have going through? The road, your main roads will be through mountain passes because you don't want to have to climb the mountains. So look what happens. First of all, Nitai Arbeli says that do not abandon belief in retribution. In other words, Al tityayish min haparanut. I don't like the translation. Don't give up when things are rough. That's what he's saying. All right, next. I'm doing this fast because people coming from Mincha. The Sanhedrin was exiled in 10 stages at the end of the Second Temple period and after the destruction of the temple. And it goes from all over, Yerushalayim to Yavne, from Usha, and then from there to Shafaram and Beit Sharim, all over the country. Eventually comes to Tiberia. And for several hundreds, a good solid hundreds of years, they're based in, first the Sanhedrin, then the Yeshiva Gadol of Yisrael is in Tiberia. That's why the Rambam's buried in Tiberia and Rabbi Akiva is supposed to be buried in Tiberia. That's all because that's where the yeshiva was. So says Rav Yochanan, and from there they are destined to be redeemed. Now there's other proofs of it, but there's a connection between this area, Tiberia, and also Arbel is right above Tiberia. It's like a 5-minute drive to get to the tops of Tiberia. And there's a feeling that that's where the Geula is going to start. Okay? And here's the story. Rav Chia the elder and Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta was walking through the Arbel Valley at daybreak. And when they saw the first rays of dawn, Rabbi Chia the elder says to Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, such is Israel's redemption. At first it comes slowly by slowly, and as it progresses, its light increases. So what's going on about this place, Arbel? So Chagai HaMitzor suggests the following. They knew when they were building this, it's not like we nowadays, even nowadays, it takes a number of years to get, build a shul. You got to get the funds together and you got to just to build it. In those days, they were farmers. They didn't have government help. So what happens? You're out in your field, you find a stone, you bring it back in every few months, the people would gather together. You don't have time for this. It could take years to build. It could take, some archaeologists suggest even up to 25, 40 years. So when you're building a shul, you know that you might not even be davening in that shul. You might not be praying there. So why, when you put things that are different in the architecture of the shul, why are you doing that? Because you want to give over a message to the next generation. So what message are they giving over here? So there's a medrash over here. Rav Yochanan was sitting in the Beit Knesset of Tzipori, and he was giving a drush that in the future, that the eastern gates of the Beis HaMikdash the gate itself and its two side smaller gates will be built out of even achat, one stone of pearls, monolith. All right, and he's giving this drasha. And there's a guy there who's making fun of it. He says it's not going to be. And then this guy, this Rasha, this evil person, he goes out on a boat and he drowns at sea. And then he's underneath there. Malachi, he sees that the Malachi Hashares are cutting out this door. And then he gets saved by a miracle. He says the next year it happens, Rabbi Yochanan's giving the same drasha, and he comes in, he says to all the mockers, I wouldn't believe it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Okay, what's the idea? Where do we have a door, right? Where do we have a door that has two smaller doors on the side? You know, it's three doors in one. The eastern entrance to the base of Mikdash. This is Shar Nicanor that goes right into the Azara. But the eastern entrance is a little bit back from here. It's the same idea. In other words, why did these people making their shul with three doors? What are they telling their kids? What are they reminding them of? Three doors, all one stone, yeah? And where's that found? In the base of Mikdash. And we're now, and where are you going to place it in your shul? Not across from the Aron Kodesh, where? On the eastern wall, because that's where you'll find it in the base of Mikdash. And who's going to put it there? Kadosh Baruch Hu. And we're deep into the middle of the Roman period, and things are bad. And Nitai Arbeli gets up and says, don't give up. Whatever you do, don't give up. There's a future for the Jewish people. And they place this in the construction of their synagogue, so that when the next generation comes by, that's what they're going to see. And that's what they're reminded of every time they enter into that shul. So that's like Chagaya Mitzvah says, that's what you have. It's a beautiful insight. Like here, you got some piece of archaeology. What do you do with this thing? And you look at our sources, you come up with maybe a possible understanding of what they were doing there. And if you come there today, this is what it looks like. There's actually a place for you to stand and take a look at it. It's made in memory of this fellow named Max Steinberg. He died in Tzukeitan in 2014. Fellow Max was from California. He wasn't connected much to his Judaism, went to Birthright. He was on a Birthright tour, got to the Arbel, and they told him the story of the rabbi who's walking below and seeing the sun slowly rise in the morning. And that's the Jewish people. And he was so inspired, he said, I'm staying in Israel. He stays in Israel, joins Golani, and unfortunately in Tzukeitan he was killed.
That's where I did the boot camp.
What do you say?
That's where I did boot camp.
Oh, in this place?
It's like it.
Which one is this? Regavim? That's Golani? Did we talk about this?
I have 10 years military in Golani. זה רגבים, זה קיבוץ רגבים.
הבן שלי היה גם בגולני, הוא היה יותר במרכז.
אתה מתכוון בעבר, זה היה בפלס גולני.
Anyway, we're all Golanchiks. Golanis, you think that the Jewish people are one family? Golanchiks, it's a different family. It's like, right? They're very tight. But yeah, this is so it's a Golanchik. So he, unfortunately, this is what happened. The story on him is that they were burying him. He's a lone soldier. His parents, the country brought the parents in. And they're on the way to Har Herzl, and they see that everyone's walking on the streets. Everyone's walking on the streets, and they say, like, what's going on over here? Is there a party today in Jerusalem? And they said, no. They were all going to the 30,000 people showed up, because that's the Jewish people. So that's Har Arbel, and that's where it's at. And that's the story we saw. That's what he saw, Rabbi Chia Gadol. As the sun slowly shines over the Golan Heights, when you're looking over the Kinneret, so too will be the redemption of the Jewish people. We have nowadays, thank God, the Medina slowly gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And Baruch Hashem, we have a lot to be thankful for. And Yom Yerushalayim is coming up in 2 days. Continuation of the miracle. There you go. Thank you very much. Hazaku Baruch. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's yours.
That's so nice. Is that good? So yeah, absolutely.